Hey, how's it going? I hope you're doing well. I hope this election isn't taking too hard a toll on you. It's been doing a number on me, man. I'm going crazy. I've never felt this much continuous and persistent hatred for another group of people in my life. I don't think. I every day I discover a new way to hate Republicans even more, and today I'm going to be exploring one of those ways by making the case for why Matt Walsh is actually a worse person than Bill Cosby. So, just for some context for those who don't know, Matt Walsh is a professional Trump scrotum licker. He spends his days thinking of how to actually gratify Trump in all sorts of new and debasing ways, and he never fails to impress with his acts of propitiation. It's truly something to see. And Bill Cosby is a disgraced comedian who has been accused of sexual assault and rape by 58 different women. Cosby would often lure these women into some secluded space under the guise of offering them guidance and mentorship in the entertainment industry. He would spike their drinks, wait till they were unconscious, and then have sex with them without their consent when they were incapacitated. He defamed his victims on multiple occasions. He continues to deny any culpability for his actions to this day. He was convicted of indecent aggravated assault in 2018, and then that conviction was later overturned on procedural grounds. But overall, that's a gestalt for how big a piece of shit Bill Cosby is. And I still think that despite having at least 58 less people than Bill Cosby, Matt Walsh is a worse person than Bill Cosby. So yeah, before I get into why I feel the way that I do, I want to play you this bit of Norm Macdonald's that I really resonated with when I first heard it, because I think it speaks to the basic confusion that might keep you from understanding why I'm correct. So here it is.
Hey, listen, Bill Cosby, first of all, is my hero ever since I was a kid, because I always wanted to be like him, and I got his albums, tried to emulate him, but I didn't like his stand-up, but I like the way he was as a man. Because this was before, they didn't say he was a rapist on the fucking liner notes of the albums, you know? That's what my buddy said. He said, the worst part about Cosby was he was a hypocrite. And I said, I don't think that was the worst part. To me, the worst part was the raping. Way up high. And then the second would be the drugging. And then the third would be the scheming. But anyways, hypocrisy would be way down the line, you know, like on the fourth page or some shit. Like, I'm no expert, but I think probably most rapists are hypocrites. You know what I mean? You don't meet a lot of guys who go, I like to rape, I don't give a fuck. I know it's not a politically correct thing to say, but I like raping. Go, goddamn, at least he's not a hypocrite. That's the worst. That's the worst part of it.
All right, so let's just summarize what Norm was doing in this bit. He has a friend who claims to believe that the hypocrisy of Bill Cosby's crimes was the worst feature of those crimes. And then Norm playfully suggests that it's the scheming and the drugging and the raping that are actually way worse than the hypocrisy. And then he goes on to say that hypocrisy would be way down the line, it would be on the fourth page or something, and that most rapists by their nature are hypocrites, which is an astute observation. But I think this distinction that he draws between the quality of being hypocritical and the kinds of acts that one would commit in a campaign of serial rape, such as the one that Bill Cosby did, I think it's kind of tenuous in the sense that, like, let's say that instead of the hypocrisy, Norm Macdonald's friend said the worst part about it was the malice and the sexual deviancy. And then Norm were to say, I don't think it was that. I think it was the raping and the drugging and the scheming. I think intuitively we would recognize that that distinction doesn't make any sense. It's the raping and the drugging and the scheming is an expression of the malice and the sexual deviancy and the kind of mind this criminal has that allows him to do all these nefarious things. And I think the same is true when it comes to Bill Cosby's hypocrisy. In fact, I think the same is true of basically anyone's desire to do anything wrong. When you're sinning, in whatever way you tend to sin, and you are complacent in your sin, like you just feel no issue with it, and you're being a hypocrite with respect to your professed values, that is hypocrisy, and that is bad. And it wouldn't really make sense to say of that kind of person that, oh, I have no problems with your hypocrisy, I just have a problem with the wrong thing that you're doing, because the wrong thing that they're doing is enabled by their hypocrisy. Like the part of the bit where Norm talks about how there are no honest rapists and no fierce advocates of rape who will just be unabashed in their commitment to violating people's sexual autonomy. That is, I think that's true of basically every crime, right? I'm no expert, but I would say that no criminal says before he commits a crime that, yeah, I know it's not politically correct to say, but I fucking love committing crime. It's my bread and butter. So don't tread on me while I try and rob this bank or kill this person or rape your family or any of that shit, you know? And bro, when it comes to Cosby's rapes, the disjunction between his public image and the kind of shit that he did in the dark of the night, it's like a key piece of that whole affair. Like it's one thing to rape 58 women as your run-of-the-mill serial rapist, and it's another thing entirely to do it while being perceived as America's dad and a moral thought leader. You know, like Dave Chappelle had a great bit about it where he said, it would be like you discovered that chocolate ice cream itself had raped 58 people. Like for you to learn that the staple of your life, which you previously imagined was not just perfectly benign, but actively good, you know, the epitome of goodness and virtue, could do something so atrocious and contemptible, that warrants a different kind of response and evaluation than it would if it was just something that you would more readily associate with that kind of evil behavior. And one interesting fact about the saga in Cosby's life is that in the beginning, no one really gave a shit about the rape allegations. Okay, he was trailing 4 rape allegations from, I have the names written down here, give me a sec, from Andrea Constant in January 2005, Tamara Green in February 2005, Beth Ferrier in June 2005, and Barbara Bowman in June 2006. All 4 of these women had publicly accused Bill Cosby of rape and sexual assault, and no one really gave a shit until 8 years later, when Hannibal Buress made a joke about Bill Cosby being a fucking hypocrite.
13, and it's even worse because Bill Cosby has the smuggest old black man public persona that I hate. This kid's on TV. Pull your pants up, black people. I was on TV in the 80s. I can talk down to you because I had a successful sitcom. Yeah, it was women, Bill Cosby, so kind of brings it down a couple notches. I don't curse on stage, but yeah, you're a rapist, so I take you saying lots of on Bill Cosby himself if you want to rapist. Dude's image, for the most part, it's public Teflon image. I've done this bit on stage, and people don't believe, people think I'm making it up. I'm like, Bill Cosby, there's a lot of allegations. No, you do. No. That is upsetting. If you didn't know about it, trust me. When you leave here, Google Bill Cosby. It's not funny. This more results than Hannibal Buress.
So Hannibal did that bit on October 16, 2014. The story went viral. And between his performance and May 1st of the following year, 35 more women came forward with stories about how Cosby assaulted them and victimized them and violated them in the most heinous of ways. And then on July 6, 2015, at the request of the AP, a judge unsealed the deposition that Cosby gave during his defamation lawsuit with Andrea Constant, in which he admitted to drugging women. And that was a key piece of evidence that led to his conviction of indecent aggravated assault in 2018. And the rationale that the judge gave for unsealing those documents explicitly mentioned Cosby's hypocrisy. Judge Eduardo C. Roberno wrote, "The stark contrast between Bill Cosby, the public moralist, and Bill Cosby, the subject of serious allegations concerning improper and perhaps criminal conduct, is a matter as to which the AP, and by extension the public, has a significant interest." And then when Cosby's lawyers tried to argue that the information contained within the deposition was confidential and unsealing the documents would violate Cosby's right to privacy, the Judge Roberno responded by saying, Cosby has donned the mantle of public moralist and mounted the proverbial electronic or print soapbox to volunteer his views on, among other things, child rearing, family life, education, and crime. He has voluntarily narrowed the zone of privacy that he is entitled to claim. In support of this point, the judge cited Cosby's pound cake speech, his message for no-gros during an interview with Don Lemon, and a commencement address he delivered at Temple University in 2014. So, now that we know all this, I think it's pretty clear that hypocrisy was a key and central feature of Cosby's crimes, and that it was nowhere near as trivial and inconsequential as Norm's bit would suggest. Obviously, I don't blame Norm for overlooking it, because I don't think he was trying to make a serious philosophical point, but yeah, all this just goes to show that in the person of Bill Cosby, what we have is an aggressively flamboyant and unrepentant hypocrite. And all the world over, nobody gives a fuck about what he has to say because we recognize that fact. His hypocrisy is universally acknowledged and renders his opinion on any topic of social consequence wholly irrelevant. And personally, I am the biggest fucking fan of this principle of discrimination. Okay, where we say beforehand, look, there are rules for conversation, there are rules for how to behave in society, and everybody's going to know the rules, so we're all in agreement about how to think and act and behave, and if you choose to egregiously violate these rules, then we will kick you out of the club, right, as we have done with Cosby. No one gives a fuck about what Cosby has to say, and whatever fame and power and influence he enjoyed prior to the revelations about his sexual impropriety, he no longer enjoys. His life as a public-facing person is effectively over. But to be clear, the reason that it's correct for us to ostracize Cosby from every corner of polite society is not that he's a racist. Okay, yes, it's bad that he raped people and abhorrent and disgusting, but the real issue with Cosby is that he continues to maintain his innocence. Right? He somehow expects the rest of us to believe that 58 women have lied on his name. 58 women have formed a conspiracy to defame him for God knows what. That's the issue with Bill Cosby. It's totally conceivable to me that it's not totally conceivable. It's kind of a weird hypothetical scenario, but it is not outside the realm of possibility that Cosby could have done all those rapes, repented, made a sincere effort to turn over a new leaf, and reintegrated himself with the rest of society. So the thing that I'm concerned with, morally speaking, is not the fact that you did X, Y, or Z fucked up thing in the past, and that's just like an ineradicable stain on your legacy that you have to carry around for the rest of your life. Like that's not a sane way to think about sin. What I'm concerned about is what features of your psychology are preventing you from understanding how fucking wrong you are and taking the necessary steps to rectify your mistakes. And ultimately what that boils down to, in my view, is a concern about intellectual dishonesty. And this is an idea that I've been playing around with ever since I first became acquainted with Matt Walsh's hypocrisy like a couple weeks ago. But I think this is, like, if there's any software reboot that I can just download onto the minds of all 8 billion people on this planet right now, it would be to stop giving a fuck about racists and rapists and murderers and thieves and all those other kinds of criminals, and just start caring about dishonesty and lies and hypocrisy. These seemingly inconsequential crimes that we tolerate on a daily basis actually contribute much more to human suffering than any of those other more sexy objects of your moral outrage. There's an expression that they have across the pond which goes, take care of the pennies and the pounds will take care of themselves. And I think the same is true of dishonesty and the variant breeds of evil that it gives rise to. Before I continue, my phone is low on charge and I don't have a script. I've been kind of just freestyling this whole like off the dome piece, you know what I'm saying? So the lighting's going to change and it's going to look a little different, so please excuse me there. In the meantime, I'm just going to ask you to like and subscribe if you fuck with my vibe. Send me a tip if you want to enrich me. And yeah, that's basically it. See you in the next frame. Okay, so to illustrate this pennies versus pounds principle, I'd like to take a look at Matt Walsh's reaction to the racist jokes that Tony Hinchcliffe told at Trump's rally in Madison Square Garden. So for those who aren't aware, Trump held a rally on October 27, 2024, and Tony Hinchcliffe spoke at that rally, and he made a bunch of racist jokes about black people, Puerto Ricans, Jews, Latinos, Palestinians, and yeah, it was pretty bad. He was saying like Puerto Rico is a floating island of garbage. He commented on how Latinos love fucking, like that they make a lot of babies. Palestinians throw rocks. Jews can't let go of that paper. And the whole thing was really lazy and unfunny and pandering to the bigoted sensibilities of those who were at the rally. And in defense of all of those jokes, Matt had the following to say.
So he made fun of Puerto Ricans, black people, Jews, and Arabs. That's a pretty equal opportunity offender. Were they offensive jokes? I mean, yeah, if you're a whiny little baby, they're offensive to you. If those jokes are offensive to you, then you're just a whiny, pathetic, ridiculous, sad sack of a human being. If it was actually offensive, okay, not like you're pretending to be, but if you heard any of those jokes and were actually hurt by them, then you're just a ridiculous person.
Okay, so to summarize Matt's view, he believes these jokes were all just good-natured fun, and that anyone who has the gumption to express their offense at these jokes is being a whiny little bitch, right? That's essentially what he believes. And there are a couple ways people can react to this statement. If you are the kind of person who gets offended when people play connect the dots with minorities and racial stereotypes, then you could say what Matt Walsh is saying is fucking disgusting, it's racist, he is attempting to rationalize bigotry, and it's Matt's racism that should end his professional career. So that's the pounds part of the analogy. The pound that is the target of your outrage is the racism. You want to eliminate racism from every corner of the earth in whatever way it manifests itself. And in this case, that happens to be Matt defending Tony Hinchcliffe's racist jokes. And part of your strategy in attacking this problem is going to be establishing that Matt Walsh and Tony Hinchcliffe are racist. And you have to do it in such a way where it's conclusive. And there's no other reasonable explanation for why these people are behaving in the way that they do. And in Tony Hinchcliffe's case specifically, I don't actually think he's racist. Like, in my heart of hearts, I don't think he genuinely has racial animus towards Hispanics or Latinos, despite making a disgusting joke at their expense at the rally. And while I'm bothered by racism as well, I'm just not interested in the game of collecting evidence of a person's racism and going up to someone and saying, look, because of all this evidence, this person is racist, so join my side and we can fight the racism together. That seems so tedious and boring to me. I have no interest in doing that. And the reason I'm not interested in playing that game is that it takes way too much effort for virtually no payoff. Like, to the average uninformed reader in our populace, their standard for what counts as racist and what would justify us calling someone racist is a guy has to go up on a stage with a megaphone and say unambiguously, he has to say, I fucking hate black people and Hispanics and Latinos, and I think that white people are the superior race. Okay, that's the kind of statement that you need to get out of his mouth to call him a racist nowadays. And what Tony Hinchcliffe said was many miles away from that neighborhood of explicit support for racism. Okay, it's just, the guy's an insult comic, he fucks around, he said some shit at a rally, and come on guys, like Matt's right, let's stop being pussy for a second and just chill the fuck out. That's the kind of response you would get from a person when trying to make the case for why what Tony Hinchcliffe did was racist. So, because I'm not interested in wasting my time by litigating past all those layers of ambiguity and plausible deniability and other Weasley bullshit, I prefer to focus on the pennies. Okay, because the pennies, they're just so clear. They're so explicit and so undeniably obvious to anyone with a pulse and a brain cell that it just makes my life so much easier when it comes to deciding who's a good faith actor and who's a bad faith actor and who are my friends and enemies. And the penny I choose to focus on when making those judgments is intellectual dishonesty. To refer back to what Norm was saying earlier, just as there is no such thing as an intellectually honest racist, there is no such thing as an intellectually honest racist or sexist or any other flavor of asshole. Okay? These are all fucking liars. And if you really care about eliminating them from the face of the earth, all you need to do is focus on their intellectual dishonesty. Focus on the way that they talk, the obvious contradictions in the things that they say, and the impossibility of reconciling the views that they express in different contexts. So now I just want to give you a taste of how this superior way of engaging with a person's fuck shit works. So Matt says his retarded bullshit, and I just say, okay, fine. I will just take you at your word and believe that you are a good faith actor who just sincerely believes that we need to have a more resilient society with more thick-skinned people that can take jokes like this and not be offended. That is a totally defensible position for a person to take. Okay? That's step one. So you just grant it to them. You don't give a fuck about the racism. You don't focus on it. All you do is just accept what they say. Accept what they say and make a note of their position and the principles that seem to be guiding it. So to do that with Matt right now, Matt's position is that there is no joke that could be so offensive as to warrant people actually taking offense to it. There's no such thing as an offensive joke, essentially, because he's okay with black people and carving watermelons. He's okay with Palestinians and throwing rocks. He's okay with Jews and not throwing that paper. And he's okay with calling Puerto Rico an island of garbage. And he's okay with this regardless of the context. He wasted no time in addressing the fact that these jokes were delivered at a political rally and that there were people who could actually feel that their bigotry and racism was vindicated by the fact that those jokes were told. He didn't give a fuck about any of that shit. He thinks across all contexts and domains, if you make jokes where you're invoking racial stereotypes, that is not offensive. And if you find it offensive, you are a whiny little bitch who needs to shut the fuck up. Okay, you're a ridiculous person whose opinion doesn't need to be taken seriously by anyone in society. That's the position. After that, you just chill the fuck out, all right? You just keep listening to them talk. Let them talk for long enough. And slowly but surely, they're going to reveal what they actually think, just as Matt did in the following clip.
But here's the video that Tim Walsh posted to his social media accounts. Let's watch.
Like I have white guy tacos and
What does
like
that
black,
mean? Like mayonnaise and tuna? What are you doing?
pretty much ground beef and cheese.
That's
and,
okay. Do you put any flavor in it?
No.
Oh.
Here's the deal. No, they said to be careful and let her know this, that black pepper is the top of the spice level in Minnesota, you know.
I'm the first vice president, I believe, who has ever grown chili peppers.
I'm trying to expand
We'll
my
figure that-
my food knowledge.
You know what? We've got some cantaloupes. You'll be fine.
Yeah.
Okay, so now most people seem to be focused on the fact that this is so awkward and fake and lame, but everyone's skipping over the more important point, which is that a presidential candidate just casually dropped anti-white racism in the middle of what was supposed to be a lighthearted video. You know, Tim Walsh says that he makes white guy tacos, and Kamala says, "What is that? Mayonnaise and tuna?" Like, that is anti-white racism. That's what that is. And if you don't believe that, right? If you think that I'm overstating the case, all right, well, just imagine it the other way. Imagine a black guy says to Donald Trump, "I make black guy tacos." And Donald Trump says, "Oh, what is that? Like fried chicken and watermelon? Maybe sprinkle some Kool-Aid powder over top. Am I right?"
Okay. Let's break down this new position. In this clip, what Matt seems to be saying is that it's totally inappropriate for a presidential candidate to be engaging in racial humor. It doesn't matter what they're saying, what the context is about, but it's just the mere coexistence of the phrase white guy and mayonnaise and tuna in a sentence is far too incendiary a provocation for a little bitch like Matt Walsh. And this new position is starkly at odds with the one that he previously espoused.
If those jokes are offensive to you, then you're just a whiny, pathetic, ridiculous, sad sack of a human being.
All right, so at this stage of the investigation, what we have done is discovered two mutually exclusive positions that Matt claims to hold at the same time. This is impossible and can only be explained by him being either an idiot or an asshole. And regardless of whatever he is at the end of the day, he is not to be trusted as a reliable and honest broker of information. Because if he's stupid, then he's stupid. Why the f would you go to a stupid guy for your talking points on politics? And if he's lying and an asshole, then again, why would you go to a liar to get honest and accurate information about the world around you? And notice how through this form of criticism, I don't even need to deal with the possibility that this nigga might be racist. Okay, he probably is racist. I give him odds of like 60-40 or 70-30 on being racist because that's the only thing that explains the double standard. But I can leave that to the side. I actually don't give a f that he's a racist. All I care about is that he's an idiot or an asshole. And this is incontrovertible evidence of that fact. The coexistence of these clips is every bit as damning for Matt's professional reputation as the 58 allegations of sexual assault and rape were for Bill Cosby's. In the world that I'm trying to build, this kind of hypocrisy would be so universally abhorred that it would just end Matt's life. His career would be over, not just in media, but across all domains. Everyone from his milkman to his landlord would say, "This guy is a bitch-ass nigga, and I want nothing to do with him, personally or professionally." That's the kind of world that I want to live in. I want him to be out of a fucking job, to be living on the streets, to spend his days and nights hunting for stray cats and dogs, to put together a meal for his wife and 6 children. Okay, that's the level of contempt I have for this kind of dishonesty. And that's the kind of contempt that I think a lot more of us should be displaying for it. Because when you let people talk in this way, it's not just restricted to bullshit about white guys and mayonnaise and tuna and black guys and watermelons. Okay, this guy has a platform where he talks to hundreds of thousands of people, day after day, year after year, and advertises this style of conversation as normal and worthy of respect and engagement. Like, he presents himself as a moral authority. And I find that positioning on Matt's part to be every bit as grotesque, and honestly much more grotesque than what Bill Cosby's doing. Because in Bill Cosby's case, all of us recognize that he's full of shit. He has been rightfully excommunicated from public life because of his refusal to admit wrongdoing for his crimes. And this mechanism that we have that prevents people from lying with impunity and keeps them from evading accountability for their stupid actions and utterances is a beautiful thing. We need checks and balances in place that keep people like Matt Walsh and Bill Cosby from rising to the levers of power in our society. And our default attitude towards Cosby, until he owns up to what he did, is fuck him. There is no conversation to be had with him about immigration or crime or education or child rearing, because he's a fucking racist who won't even acknowledge that fact about himself. And more or less the same thing is true about Matt Walsh. To give you a sense of how I think about Matt's online presence, I basically view him as Bill Cosby. If Bill Cosby were somehow allowed to have a YouTube channel with 3 million subscribers, where he actually posts tutorials on how to drug and rape women. I think it's only appropriate, like in the final stretch of this video, for me to explain why I find Matt's behavior so much more offensive than Bill Cosby's. Now, let's just grant that rape is bad. Okay, rape is one of the worst things you can do. But just because rape is one of the worst things you can do doesn't mean that you can't do many less objectionable things in rape that are still bad, right? You can still beat the shit out of someone, or lie to them, or betray them, or defraud them, or victimize them in any number of ways that doesn't involve you penetrating them with your penis while they're unconscious. And given that that's the case, we can acknowledge that different bad things that people do can be better or worse depending on the scope and scale of those crimes. For example, I think it's obviously true to say that if Bill Cosby raped 57 women, that would be marginally better than him having 58. And if he raped 59 women, that would be marginally worse than having 58. So if what I just said was comprehensible to you, and you understand the point that I'm making about, like, a crime within itself can be better or worse depending on how much of it is committed, then I think you can also join me in making the leap towards comparing different crimes. And you can also notice how specific crimes have a propensity towards promoting even more seemingly unrelated crimes. And this is a key reason why I judge Matt more harshly than I judge Bill Cosby, because the negative effects of Cosby's are highly circumscribed to the lives of his victims. And once he dies and once they die, there isn't really much for us to consider morally speaking, because both of them are dead, right? And in the commission of those rapes, Bill Cosby wasn't advancing a worldview or a style of conversation that is bound to destroy the country. And he wasn't contributing to a media environment that funds itself through a feedback loop of dishonesty and hypocrisy and opportunism. And he wasn't advertising to his audience that this raping of unconscious women thing that I'm doing right now, this is a very lucrative venture that you too can one day join. Right? He wasn't doing any of that shit. He just raped a bunch of women, and now he's basically finished. But the opposite is true with Matt and his crimes. When Matt lies in this way, the scope of the harms that flow from that action are not just restricted to him and whoever he's talking to on the one instance that he's talking to them. Okay, he's talking to hundreds of thousands of people. He's contributing to a media environment that protects this kind of speech and doesn't call it out, and allows other dishonest and unethical people to enrich themselves by degrading the quality of our public conversation on consequential topics. And all of this shit is bad, right? This is terrible for anyone who actually gives a fuck about free speech and an honest exchange of ideas. And for anyone who cares about rape, it's bad for that too, because the same intellectually dishonest style of conversation that Matt uses to excuse racism is used by other conservatives to excuse rape.
And, like, you know, sexually abusing a woman, like Donald Trump did to E. Jean Carroll. I'd say, like, you have to lack necessary virtues there. But I wanted to ask you a question specifically.
That case is, that woman is, like, out of her mind. Like, between all that, like, he is married to, like, a beautiful woman. He can have any woman. He can date models, all these things. And then you have this woman who's, like, known, some, like, crazy feminist, anti-Trump, in the woods, like, all this stuff. Like, really?
Do you mind if I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Do you know one...
I don't have... How about this? I do not believe all women.
Do you know one piece of evidence that she had submitted to the court to prove that he had sexually abused her?
What was it? Are we talking about the dressing rooms?
Well, I'm asking if you know a piece of evidence that she submitted to prove
No, I mean, I simply look at that woman and I go, she's out of her mind,
Okay.
and this clear bias
Yeah.
is crazy.
So-
I'm a woman. I can
Would it-
see people lie.
Bro, somebody got to rate this bitch for real. Like, she's just doing too much yapping. She's talking too much shit. And I just feel like a hearty serving of rape would teach her a good lesson about how to talk about rape in public. If you're offended by that suggestion, I'm just joking. Don't be offended. Don't be a little pussy. But yeah, like this style of speaking where you don't know shit about the case, you don't know a single piece of evidence, but you still feel totally comfortable to comment with so much confidence about this woman is obviously lying. She's biased. I'm a woman. I know that they're lying. Like, you can't live with these kinds of people. You can't build a society with them. You can't. They're a liability in every sense of the word. And Matt and her and Tucker Carlson and Ben Shapiro and Tim Pool and every other faggot in conservative media contributes to the ecosystem that insulates this style of speech from consequences. And what I want to promote is a different kind of culture, and a different kind of cancel culture in particular, where rather than going to sponsors with clips of people saying something racist or sexist and focusing on the content of what they say, we place more of an emphasis on the methodology which they use to say it. So for example, I think this bitch's name is Emily Wilson. So in Emily Wilson's case, I would write to a sponsor saying something like, hey, why are you funding someone who thinks it's appropriate to have a strong opinion on a topic that they know nothing about? Do you think that that's an appropriate thing to do? And then based on their response, I can decide for myself whether I want to continue being a patron of their business, right? If they say, yes, we actually think that's perfectly acceptable and we see no problem with it, then that's enough for me to know that that's a business that I want nothing to do with. And if they say no, then we're moving towards a marginally better world where people aren't financially rewarded for this kind of ignorance. And again, the elegance and beauty of dealing with things in this way is that you don't need to force them to take a position on the content of what's being said. Even with the joke that I made against Emily just now, it has nothing to do with her talking about rape. She could have been talking about what happened in the 3rd chapter of Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows. Even in that case, if she were to have a strong opinion about the events that transpired in that chapter without actually reading the chapter, I would say the same thing. I would say, this bitch needs to get raped. Okay, that's not an acceptable way to talk. It's not acceptable when you're talking about rape. It's not acceptable when you're talking about Harry Potter or any other topic under the sun. So, yeah, that's my conclusion. I think intellectual dishonesty is the worst thing a person can do, and people like Emily Wilson and Matt Walsh engage in it far more prolifically than Bill Cosby engaged in his rapes. So with that being said, I'd like to thank you for joining me in this meditation, and I'm totally open to hearing any questions, comments, concerns, disagreements, etc. And yeah, that's that. Thanks for watching. See you later. Have a good one. Bye-bye.